So our second learning target is I can multiply radical expressions. Multiply. Okay. And so here's our example. We have 3 times square root 2 minus 2 times square root 5 in parentheses, and we're multiplying that expression with another expression, 4 times square root 20 plus square root 8, right? And so this is a situation where FOIL method is going to work because we have A plus B times C plus D. And what do we do here? Well, we do first inside, outside, last. Right? So what does this become if we use the FOIL method? It's A times C, plus the outside, it's A times D, plus the inside, which is B times C, plus the last, which is B times D. All right. So we're doing first, outside, inside, last. Right? So we can use that method here as well. It's first, inside, outside, and last. These two last terms in both expressions. Right? And that's what's happening over here. These two are the first two terms. These two are the last two terms, outside two terms, right? This one and this one. And then these two are the two inside terms right here. And then these two terms multiplied are the two last terms in both expressions. Now that we're here, what can you do? Well, we can go ahead and multiply. And how do you multiply expressions involving square roots? You multiply the constants in front. So we'll multiply the 3 times the 4. And then we'll multiply the radicands under the square root. It'll become square root 40. You see that? 12 times square root 40. And that's what we're going to do here too. It's the 3 times the 1, right? There's a 1 in front of that square root. 3 times 1 is 3. That's why we get a 3 here. And then we multiply the radicands. We multiply what's under the square root. So it's 2 times 8. It's square root 16. And we're doing that the whole way down. Right? We're doing that with this first term, the second term, the third term, and the fourth term. And once you do that, well, we have a problem very similar to the ones we've seen on the previous page. And in order to simplify, we need to simplify each term. Right? This one becomes 12 square root 2 times 10 is 40. And then this one here is 3 times the square root of 16. Well, 16 is a perfect square, so that's 4. 3 times 4 minus 8 times square root 100. 100 is a perfect square too, so it's 8 times 10, right? Minus 2 times the square root of 2 times 2 times 10, right? And then we go ahead and simplify here. So what do? We are going to combine our like terms. These two here are like terms, so we get 12 minus 2 is 10. 10, but that's not 10. Give me 1 second. Oh, I see what she did. So what happened is we first pulled out the 2. Right? So first we pulled out the 2 because we have 2 factors of 2 here. We have 2 factors of 2 there. So we pull out a 2. That makes it 24 times square root of 10. Plus 12, which is 3 times 4, minus 8 times 10, which is negative 80. And on this last term, we're pulling out a 2, so it's negative 4 times square root 10. All right, so now that we're here, we can combine our like terms, and we have negative 80 plus 12 is going to be negative 68. And then 24 minus 4 is going to be 20 times square root 10. Right? They both have a square root 10, the first term and the last term. So this is our simplified version of this expression here. So let's go ahead and look at example 2. Let's try to figure this one out. So we know that square root 2 minus 2 times square root 3 squared is the same as square root 2 minus 2 square root 3 times square root 2 minus 2 times square root 3. And so now what are we going to do? We're going to use the FOIL method, right, to evaluate. So we do first, outside, inside, last, right? So the first is going to be square root 2 times square root 2. Well, that's going to be easy. The outside is going to be minus, because we have a positive square root 2 and a negative square root 2. So it's going to be minus square root 2 times 2 square root 3. Then the inside is going to be a minus 2, because we have a minus and a plus. So it's going to be minus 2 square root 3 times square root 2. And then the last is going to be these two. It's going to be positive, because we have two negatives. So it's going to be positive 2 square root 3 times 2 square root 3, like so. Okay, so now we need to simplify. So square root 2 times square root 2 is just a 2. And then over here, we have a negative 1 times a positive 2. It's going to be a negative 2. And then for the radicals, we multiply what's under the radical. So it's going to be square root 6. All right. We'll do the same over here. We'll get negative 2 times square root 6. For the same reason, negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. And then we multiply what's under the radical to get square root 6. And then on the last one, we get 2 times 2 is 4. And we multiply what's under the radical. So we get radical 9. All right. So how can we simplify this? Well, let's do what we can, right? We get a 2, and then we have like terms. So negative 2 minus 2 is going to be negative 4 square root 6 plus 4 square root 9. And then lastly, we can simplify this square root 9, right? Because square root of 9 is 3. So then this term here becomes 12. Oh, I'm surprised I didn't see that before. So it's 2 minus 4 square root 6 plus 12. And then we can combine our two constants together, and we get 14 minus 4 square root 6. And that is our final answer there.